comes to visit me. She's my niece. She can drop by and visit, but if she's staying for the weekend, she needs to be in my driveway. And we try and be thoughtful to one another. And another thing you probably haven't thought about, because there are a lot of issues, most of us have security cameras about every fourth house. So this sweet little thing right here is safe. And we put cameras a lot of times, everybody can see the children. And we look out for one another. So if his lawnmower turns up missing, we go over to Jed's house or Terry's, and we say, Terry, did you pick up who took his lawnmower? And there it is. And we work together. Now, this guy up front, I've met him one time about 4 or 5 years ago, so he's not my buddy. I came up and introduced myself to him when I walked in. I'm like, hey, remember me? And he's like, yeah. But what I'm saying is, and there will not be a deluge of children moving into your schools. That will be built at about 100 houses a year. About 20% of our children are under 5. They won't even be attending. By the time they attend, they will put $25,000 into the tax coffers from our house taxes to help pay for the next schools we need, for the roundabouts we need. And then the other 30 children will be spread out over middle and high school. And nothing is perfect. And we do live 5 feet apart, about 10 feet actually. 5 for you, 5 for me. My utility bills are low. We use less energy. We use less water. And houses, when a lot of y'all bought, you were lucky. They were $25,000. That doesn't even buy a car. So nowadays, most of our neighbors in my neighborhood, everyone I've lived in, both parents work to make ends meet. But they're doing it to give her a better life. And we all love Karns, and we want what's best for Karns. And we all know that climate warming, whatever you want to call it, is here. And FEMA has not been in this area in 20 years to rezone how bad the flooding has become. And as he mentioned, we have these crazy 500-year floods, and it's devastating to all of us. So please don't hate us. We really just want to be good neighbors, and I may be your neighbor there. And the first thing I'll be on is keep the trash up, keep the kids safe, and have a nice community. We don't live on streets, we live in a neighborhood. That's why I bought. I paid, my house is $400,000. For a single girl to buy that, do you know how much I worked? So it is a huge commitment. And I want to thank you all, because I think the one thing I would say about Smithbilt, no one gets it perfect, but they really try to please the neighbors in the neighborhood and around the neighborhood. And I'll bet you 10-1, knowing what I know of Josh, he'll be watching your dirt you were complaining about.
Oh, yes.
He will. So I'll get off, but thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Okay, next question. If you all have questions, that's great. I appreciate that. So let's get to the questions and get them answered, as many as we can, okay? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Danny Walls. I live on Rio Grande, just to the right side of your development. I'm going to speak for myself, not for our HOA, although several members of our community are here. For the most part, I don't have a problem with you building in our neighborhood. We love it. We welcome a handful of folks here, even maybe a larger, more than a handful. The problem we have is you're putting a community in the middle of our community. That community is large enough to have its own zip code. Let's be honest. I mean, that's the same size as my hometown, Oliver Springs, Tennessee. That's in my backyard. I welcome folks coming to Karns. I moved here from Alder Springs because I like the rural suburban community. You put a new city in my backyard, that is not a rural community anymore. Karns is not Karns anymore. Powell is not Powell anymore. I recognize everybody needs a house. Everybody needs an inexpensive house, or at least one they can afford. That's great, but don't put 1,000 of them in everybody's backyard. This is all of our backyards, whether it backs up to you or it's 5 miles from you. Put something in there that's reasonable. 1/4 to 1/2 acre lots per house would be reasonable. That way you're not dumping 2,000 cars onto Emory Road every day. That's what drives everybody nuts, is it seems there's no regard for our community. It's not in my backyard, it's join our community in the same way that we all joined this community, not by taking over the community.
I want to ask my question on mine. Our property, can y'all hear me? Is that on the mic? We share about 2,600 feet of property line with the Bell property. My family tenant farmed this with Bells back in the 1800s. Our first house was here at a spring in the mid-1800s. I've got the same concerns about runoff as a lot of you, but also the other side of it. This large valley drains into our property. There's a bowl up here that fills up in the spring. There's wet weather springs pop up all over this back side of the spring. This spring, like I said, has been flowing since the mid-1800s. I've got a pond for livestock. What assurance can you give me that I'm not gonna dry up?
Springs in the dry up?
Or my pond? I mean, we talk about retention ponds, that's great, but you don't flood people. I want some water. I don't want to be farming fish down here, because this does flood in the spring, and I'm fine with that. That's sinking in the ground, it's keeping my spring flowing all year long, but at the same time, this whole valley right here flows into our property. There's a ridge runs through here, and this valley drains, this whole hillside on the field drains. This depression fills up like a pond in the spring and slowly seeps into the ground to keep those springs flowing all year long. So what assurance do I have that I'm not gonna go the opposite direction like a lot of other concerns, and I'm gonna be living on parched ground?
Knox County, make sure you make a note that he wants the water.
But again, from the county, what recourse, commissioners, what recourse do I have if water flow does change, good or bad, more or less?
It's against the law to let water run on someone else's property.
So you're telling me county commissioners, they'll have to stop the water that comes in my property?
I have to go to court. I have to sue them.
Hey, first of all, okay, regardless of what Knox County will make us do, if it's something that we can work out with an agreement, we have to keep the water off you because you don't want additional water. In this case, it's backwards, so let's work together when we get engineered to make sure that you're accommodated. Make sure that we can keep your pond how you want.
Okay, but I would appreciate that, but I've stopped by your office, left my name and phone number back 4 months ago. My phone's never rang.
There's a key point there. The deed addresses riparian rights that talks to the runoff of the water.
Well, the plan development approval says they will refrain from adversely affecting flooding, soil, drainage, and other natural ecological conditions.
Exactly.
So that should say that they can't change the conditions now. Am I reading that correct? Okay. So that was my concern, and I know there's another gentleman here that he shares this long stretch with you, property line. We're worried, we don't want to be flooded, but don't dry us out at the same time. That's one of our concerns is, how are you gonna manage the water? It will change. There's no way it can't, so.
I don't have an exact answer, but I promise you, we will work together. In front of this entire community, we will work.
All right, I'd like to hear from you.
All right, thank you very much. Next question.
Hi, I'm Renee Manning, and I live on Bridgeville Drive. So my property backs up to the public park, the apartments. one thing to address is the water, obviously, but 2 years ago, my basement flooded with 10 inches of water. So half of my house is already destroyed to this day because of water. So water is a real concern to real people, especially me. My other big concerns are security, because my backyard will back up directly behind the public park. I mean, I guarantee you there's more crime in a public park than the cow field that's there now. Also, sound. You're talking about putting an amphitheater and a softball park and basketball courts. That obviously, I mean, that is right in my backyard. So there will be noise and lights. I mean, all of these are a big concern. I don't want people looking straight in my backyard. So, I mean, I don't know if you talked about addressing security for that area, because that is a very big concern for me and my family.
With people coming in after the center, there's only going to be one entrance and exit, and obviously we want to secure, I'm sure Knox County will make it secure. And whatever we need to do on defense or do whatever to help accommodate whatever concern we do. Again, the softball fields is amphitheater, it's not, it's not have to violate the noise code. And it's going to be up to the county, Knox County, like I said, and again, to walk people.
All right, next question.
My question really goes back to the county commissioners. My name is Ken Dyer. I was actually on the Knox County Court of Court in 1970 for 6 years. It's now the Knox County Commission. I was the representative for this area. One of the things we really worked on was roads and so forth. And roads are one of the big issues as I see it today. And my question going back to you is, you see this coming up in like 2 years or so. So what are you planning on doing to make sure that Knox County is already prepared for all this happening? We already have a situation which going out through the west end on the Karns Valley down there. If you're coming from the Oak Ridge area in work hour traffic, I've seen over 90 cars backed up to that one stop sign. I don't go back toward Harold Road when I go out or come in, because you can't get in or out of Harold Road without taking your life insurance. So you as a commissioner need to be working today on this kind of an issue. Talk about what they're going to do. What are you all going to do? Because that affects us over a bigger area than we even have.
Hi, my name's Kayla Mahan. I know I post on the Isle of Karns site a lot, and I'm young, so I know you're probably thinking I don't have much to say. I graduated veterinary school this past year in September of 2020 from Ross University, and when I graduated with in hopes of coming back to my hometown and doing large animal medicine and doing road calls. But when I came back, all I see is, and I'm not singling you guys out, but all I see is Smithbilt taking away farms, and I know that people can't afford to keep up these farms and they sell them, but the problem is that most of the time we don't know the farms are selling until they're sold. And with me living on Blacksberry, I agree with Miss Carolyn. When I was 14, 15, 16 years old, I had trouble getting out because it's in a blind curve. And luckily they put a guardrail up after someone died, but it took someone's death to put the guardrail up. And my thing is for me wanting to do large animal medicine and you're taking away these farms, I'm not gonna have a job. And I have 500,000 plus loans. So how am I supposed to pay that if there's not any agriculture in the community? And the kids that are growing up now, they will have no idea what agriculture is by the time that they're my age. And even then, the land's going to be gone. So how do you pay, or how do you afford to feed people in 2050 when there's all these billions of people that have like your homes and are living in the community, but there's no farmland to feed genetical issues in the labs, and no one wants to eat stuff like that. So my thing is, why can't you just leave the land alone, leave the cows there? There's also a cemetery there. Why not just leave the people that are buried there at rest and let them live their life, like just be buried there in peace? I mean, I know that this would probably bring a lot of good things to the community, but when I look at it, it's taking away the agriculture and taking away my job, and that's what's important to me, and that makes me selfish, I'm sorry, but I just think that when you look at land, you think of how many houses you can put on it, and how much money you can make per house, and how many people you can put in there, and that's great, but you're not kind of taking into consideration of the people that it affects, like local veterinarians, and I want to live here as long as I can, and I don't want to have to move out west just to be able to do my job to pay my student debts.
All right, I think we've got one more question, and then two more questions, and then I have some questions. So hold on if y'all don't mind, because I want you all to know some stuff.
Hi, my name is Tara Childress Sanford. I grew up in Karns, I've been here my whole life, and I live in Barrington. I drug my husband here from Rocky Hill, kicking and screaming. He loves it now. He loves being able to drive 30 seconds and get his hair cut at Max. I don't think anybody, I don't think we hate Smithbilt owners. I don't think that's the issue here that we wanted to talk about. I see, as a fairly young-ish person, not anymore as much, but I see the appeal of a Smithbilt home. It's affordable. I've walked in one and looked at granite countertops and these beautiful white kitchen cabinets and new hardwood floors and walk-in closets. So I don't think that's the issue here. I know from a personal standpoint, I think sometimes the way the land is acquired feels sketchy, and I think we all probably know the different company names and the cattle, and the way that happens feels not transparent. And I know I've seen on I Love Karns people say, people shouldn't sell the farmland. My family has had farmland. I can't afford to buy it. And so, I understand that that's not maintainable for a lot of people as the generations in Karns go on. I do think the amount of homes per acre and the integrity of the neighborhoods is questionable. I'm interested to see what some of the neighborhoods will look like in 30 years. But I know that's not what we're here to talk about. So my question, though, is, and I know a gentleman just talked about it, but I work in Oak Ridge and drive to West Emory Road every single day. And if there is a 15-minute window that I can hit Karns Valley, that it's an easy drive. But if I miss that 15-minute window, then I sit and sit and sit, and it literally adds 30 minutes to my drive home. I have a family member on Andes Road, and that road project with the Shod Road started 15 plus years ago and is still not done. Has there been any thought into talking about making some road changes prior to building something like this? I mean, it's already a problem, so could we possibly have some conversation about what we can do with the roads before we add 1,100 more cars to them?
Yeah, first of all, you are very good at this.
Yes,
Okay.
built in 1988.
Yeah, you were saying, when we bought your land,
But I think
houses
my
on
neighborhood
there.
is very different.
Well, of course it does, because that's what people could afford back then. We bought that land for $5,000, and they got to come back to work, because the land actually bought that land was there, and their father bought it, and we built their house. So, just like that, I mean, that's what the market could afford. There's lots of land there for $20,000. We can't put an affordable house in or logging for $25,000. So, we bought that, same story, we bought that, that's what the market was, so we don't dictate the market, we just everything. So, not on that change it, but, let's see, so right now, you say there's a problem. So, it's not our burden to go in there and fix the current problem, but as we add to it, that's our burden.
But
So-
your neighborhood, that's being built now is adding to that problem.
Correct, so we're adding to it, yes, so we need to take care of the corrections and the addition to it. So right now, you say there's a problem. If we did do the development, there'd still be a problem. We need a bigger picture plan, that's what everyone's talking about in Knox County, about where these dollars are going, where these funds are going. So we will have to make improvements day one. We want that red light in, if we have to do red light and turn lanes, they want, we don't want people moving in there without the safety and the infrastructure already in place. Yeah, they'll probably make us do it anyway. So there's a threshold, like Emory Orchard we're doing right now, you're about to see us work around on a turning lane. They said we can build the houses, we can occupy the houses, so the turn lanes can be built. So they put thresholds. Guys, this is math problems. Every single issue, the capacity of the schools, the engineering, traffic, it's math problems.
All right, this gentleman here, been in Karns a long time.
I'm born over on Emory Road, 82 years ago. Was born on Emory Road. And in those 82 years, I've seen one road built in Karns, and that's Karns Valley. 82 years. Emory Road was redone about 60 years ago. It was redone. Nothing different, just redone. And this lady was talking about building her houses so close together. It's not their fault. Is it? How many people in here have been to a county commission meeting? Have you been? Okay. Do you realize who okays that? I think the county commission does that.
And who votes them in?
It's not, no, not voted.
Really?
I don't think, but.
I thought all elected.
Wait, just a minute, just a minute.
Anyway, it's not their fault that those houses are built so close together.
Amen.
The commission approved them. So it's just,
Nobody's forcing them to build houses right on top of each other. That's what they want, is they want more money.
well, who okays that? County commission okays it.
But who can afford it? My house is already 400,000, and I have a postage stamp. What would a half acre cost?
Not as much,
700,000?
people wouldn't keep buying those houses.
There's a reason that those estate lots are in Anderson County too.
Oh,
Why don't you address that?
Hey, wait just a minute. Let's give everybody a
Nothing
chance
on this
to
map is
answer.
in Anderson
Anyway,
County.
guys.
The land keeps going, so this is all I'm saying.
Okay, there's no Anderson County. What was the
Yeah, we keep, there's 8 more acres past that white line that's in Anderson County, but this plan is only in Knox County, because that's what Knox County's road. They can't obviously go on the Anderson County rules and approve something in Anderson County when they govern. Nothing.
I got
in
you.
Anderson.
I got you. Okay? All right. These people, we need to look at our elected people. Therefore, we're falling down, people. It's not these people's fault.
Amen.
These people ain't business to make money. We just gotta look at who's okaying this stuff. I don't know why we don't, you know, and why is people not more involved in getting things done, like getting these roads fixed? Our road over here in Spartanburg Road is ridiculous, and that's a state road. Now, I've called the state, and I've called the county, and I understand that the county has already gave the state money to buy those businesses over there to straighten out Carpenter and Harold. I don't know whether I'm right or wrong. Okay? Now, but the state says it'll be at least 3 years before they can let the contract on the thing. So that's 3 years down the road. This will be done. So there's 3 more subdivisions going in right now. That's gonna add on top of that. So you got Harold Road, you got the road that goes over to the red light down here, and you got this intersection there. And Blacksburg Road, that's probably a bad intersection too. So what's gonna be done about it? I can remember when I could count the houses on Emory Road on my hand. Okay? And each one of them houses was a farm that paid probably $1,000 tax. Now then, you probably got 100 houses on each one of them, and they pay over $1,000 in tax. Where in the world does that money go? Where is it going? If they don't have money to fix a road, where's the money going? I think it ain't going.
Thank you, Mr. Smithbilt. I don't know if you've seen me on the TV or not during the county commission meetings. I know Mr. Snowden knows me. I know Larson J knows me. Some of the ones that are running, I've probably heard my name on there. I have begged on Facebook so many times to come to these meetings. This is our community. We do have a voice. I have a Facebook page just for that. And you know what I always say? If you don't speak up, you will never be heard. Go to the county commission. Sign up to speak. This whole process starts with the developer. They find a piece of land. They apply to the Knoxville Planning Commission, used to be known as the Metropolitan Planning Commission. Those are commissioners that sit on that pretty little half circle. Do you know who appoints them? Raise your hands. An eighth of this room has the knowledge to know who appoints those commissioners. This whole process, all of this, with an application, starts there. I was greatly mistaken when I started being involved in this in 2019 for development that is rocking our house and going in on a blind hill. Myself and two neighbors. I live on Carpenter Road. I don't care to tell you that. Take your life in your hands when you turn left. Take your life in your hands when you turn right to go down Emory Road. I've called the county. Please set up some patrol in here. 5 wrecks in a week and 2 on the same day. Dangerous. And if you drive Emory Road, please keep it the speed limit. There are elderly people that still live on those roads, and it is like a highway. Well, I'll take that back. Talladega. That's far. See how fast we can go down there? And you better hope whoever's behind you, if you get ready to turn, has their brakes pushed down to the floor.
I called the mayor of Karns, the mayor of Knoxville. I called all the 3 main TV stations. I also called the road traffic developer. Found out that all the traffic, I live near West Emory, that it's all run by the state troopers. And I talked to, I believe his name was Lieutenant Rogers, who assured me that they were going to start controlling the speeding, the noise pollution. I said, I've been calling for 6 weeks. We just had a horrific wreck. It was 2 nights before Christmas Eve, 300 feet from my home. And he goes, and I said, well, my next call, and I'll be honest, I don't want you to lose your job, but I'm calling the senators, the congressmen, and then we'll go with the state government. I promise I'm going to put people on it. I never once heard a single siren giving a ticket, ever. And so she is right. It's more than just going to the council meetings. It's finding out who's being elected. They come up again, vote them out. Because he's right, we need roads. I live here, I pay thousands a year in taxes, and I like living here. But it burns me up, like she said, they don't take our calls, or they give me what's called acknowledge, nice, ignore, move on. It's a technique.
Okay, I would also like to add, we're going back to the application process. I want